Hello, everybody. I'm Stamps Night Prime, and welcome to the final round of the Eidolon Open, hosted by Team Esper Den. This is the finals match between Josh Gardner and Jamie Faulkner, and I think they're all set to get ready, so we're gonna jump on in right now. So we have Josh Gardner, who's piloting the EX Burst deck, made popular in the SoCal Cup by Nicholas B, and Jamie Faulkner, who is on the Mono Ice variant. It looks like not necessarily turbo discard. He's got one Argath, two Sarah, more than mid-range deck, featuring Veins and whatnot to lock down the mirror. So here we go. Let's get started. The players are shuffling up. Man, I'm super excited. So Josh just got back from a heartbreaking 17th place at the SoCal Crystal Cup. I'm sure you guys are familiar with Jamie Faulkner, who has been on a tear lately, winning tons and tons of events. He just won the I think it was the Spain's Nationals. Jamie Faulkner is Presto down here, and Josh, if you've ever seen him, is the Wolverine. So they're shuffling up. The Good Luck Man, only because I know they're being recorded. Alright. So they are deciding on mulligans right now. So if we're looking over at here at Jamie Faulkner's list, by the way, Jamie's keeping. He has a 6 package. He has 3 Celeste, the three Lock. However, he has no he has no Setzer, which is really interesting. He does have the Destalian Empire set as a one-of, but no Setzer to kind of like combo off. He does have Zolaris, which is going to be instrumental in shutting down Josh's cams. Because I believe if Josh is playing right, he's going to go first turn cam. And here we go. So he discards Odin, Kate Sith, and Cecil. Is that what we're seeing? First turn Camelot? There we go, first turn Camelot. So Josh has an idea of how this deck is supposed to play out. He's going to search up Chaos and play Chaos. If he's on the draw, sometimes they will search up Emperor and play Chaos, and then next turn they'll play Emperor. So, ironically, this deck has no way of dealing with a Yogg. So if Archer. If Jamie had brought Archers into this, then there's no way to stop him from Archer in the Chaos. Well, I guess actually you have Emperor, so I take that back. If he plays the Emperor, then the Archer is pretty safe. And by that I mean Chaos, obviously. Alright, so he went and got Emperor. Interesting. So maybe he's valuing just the... Oh, and discard. I really like the Emperor in this matchup, so I don't think that he'll discard the Emperor. The problem is what's he discard? He discarded extra Camelot. Yeah, the problem is that if he doesn't discard a dark card, then he could draw into a dark card and just not be able to play anything next turn. So Josh is going to go ahead and make Camelot Ice. And probably move into the attack phase, yep. So I don't think there's any EX burst that he really needs to worry about. Sid Austin is obviously the worst one, but he has cards in his hand. In fact, let's look. I'm gonna look over the list real quick just to check for you guys. So EX burst, yep, just the 3 Sid Austin is all that Josh has to worry about when attacking. However, when Jamie's attacking, he has 43 EX bursts to worry about, which will be interesting. Alright, so this is a pretty slow start from the Mono Ice deck. Turn 1 Edward isn't ideal. Into turn... I mean, turn 2 Sarah is fine, but it's not very aggressive here. So there is no punishment for... Yeah, it looks like there's absolutely 0 punishment from Josh attacking. The exception is that Jamie could have Zalera. And I don't believe that Josh has any way to play around that. When I'm looking over his list, he could Leviathan his cam, which is very expensive. There's no way to untap it or do anything like that. So I do wonder if discarding the extra Camelot was the right play, whereas maybe I would probably discard the Emperor. Although I guess the Emperor is also safe from Zalera, so it's a safe play. And there we go. We see the Emperor. Now, some of you guys are wondering why he's able to play 2 dark cards in the field is because Camelot has switched to Ice to be protected from things like Matthias. What else does he have? He could target with Glacia Lobolis, freeze it down with Genesis. All those things can't happen now. So we have a Duke Larg joined on the field from Jamie. I don't think that the Duke Larg is very good here. Oh, there's a Vayne. That's a way to deal with the Cam. And now the Duke Larg is important, as the Vayne is now 9,000 and the Emperor can't attack into it. However, I don't see any safe way for Jamie to ever attack, because there are just so many EX bursts that are going to deal with that Vayne. He has Otamos, Odin. If he's attacking with the Vayne itself, he has Matthias, Chaos Walker the Wheel, which I could definitely see him using even without a Yuna, just to deal with the Vayne. What are the other ones? It looks like Cecil, but he hasn't taken enough points of damage for that to matter. Bastadio would be an excellent one if it's the Vayne itself attacking. Rubad would deal the trick, and Yuna would at least bounce it, so we'd have to replay it. So yeah, there are a lot of things that could punish Jamie for attacking. I'm not even sure how Jamie feels about attacking. So he's telling him to wait. And Jamie's saying, hey, you don't have Chaos. And then Josh responded, it's Ice. And then Jamie said, oh, okay, in that case, go ahead. So, interesting enough, there's not really a way to deal with that situation. They have... So, like, for example, you can't Yuna Legend because it actually doesn't affect dark cards. But you could Minerva. So, if you had... Wait, hold on. Actually, I think that Camelot stays Ice. Yeah, never mind. So, Camelot would stay Ice through Minerva. Because it's not an ability. So, yeah, actually, there's just no way that I can think of to deal with this current situation right now. As you see, Jamie's just refusing to attack, which is the right play, but I don't know if that's how you win the game. Right now, Jamie is currently sitting, excuse me, Jamie is sitting on 35 cards in deck, and Josh is sitting on 33 cards in deck. So maybe Jamie just says, if I need to build a big board, and then I can have him deck out. The problem is, of course, is that Josh does have access to Shantoto in 3 different forms. He has the card Shantoto, and then he has 2 Star Sibyls. And then he has Porums and the Mirror Web to cycle into these cards to get them faster. So until then, I think that Josh is just going to be looking to just build up, like, cards in hand. I think at some point he'll have enough cards in hand just to cast the Atamos or the Odin and deal with the Vayne. There's going to be a Porum. Yep, there's a Porum. Which is interesting. Porum lets you look at the top 3, take a card, put the rest on bottom. I think in this deck you actually go through enough cards that the order in which you put them at the bottom could be relevant. So it'd be interesting to see if Josh does move them one at a time to the bottom. Sometimes you just highlight them and drag them to the bottom, or right-click them to the bottom. It would be interesting to see if he does do them one at a time. Place his card. Yeah, so Josh is placing them one at a time on the bottom of the deck because he knows that this deck might go to this game might go to deck out, and it's important for him to put those cards in the right order. The Porb also has an ability to pay 1 CP and dole it to you can counter an activated ability. This could be really good in the matchup. I would have to see if Jamie has... So Jamie doesn't have Arcanist. That would be the best use of it, in my opinion, to stop the Arcanist. But he does have a few cards that it will at least help with. It stops Bard, Flan. Yeah, I think those are the 2 cards it stops. Although Emperor also stops those cards. Emperor also stops the specials from cards like Celeste and Edward. So it looks like Jamie will have a hard time countering any summons that are played off of from Josh's hand. So Josh moves to 6 cards in hand, so he has to play something here. Sometimes like just playing the Rosa here and getting a Cecil is the right play. So let's see what he does. He's discarding a Cecil, which isn't gonna be useful anytime soon since Jamie's not attacking. But so he just wants to put another forward on the board, just so he doesn't go to hand size. Ooh, or that Ruban. There it is. So that's most certainly going to hit the vein. And I don't see. I'm looking over. Yeah, I'm looking over at Jamie's deck. I don't see any way for him to deal with that. Is he going to Zalera? Yep. Here comes the Zalera. All right. So that is the way. Interesting enough, so Jamie's a good player where there's no doubt that Jamie was saving that Zalera for this instant. But it does look like Josh is going to have another response. I wonder if we're going to see the Leviathan now. He discards Leviathan. Because you have one Camelot in the bin already, I think that maybe saving the Cam here is worth it. Keep in mind that Jamie cannot counter anything that Josh does here, because even though he has the Edward, Josh has the Emperor Leviathan. So he's going to bounce the Camelot. He is... Let's see, so hold on. He discards Leviathan and duels Mirror Web. Moves it to hand, activates Mirror Web. Okay, so he's... Let me just check real quick. Okay, so he actually just let the Camelot break. That's what ended up happening. He actually decided not to Leviathan or do anything. I wonder if he was... So he had discarded a blue card and dueled a blue card, which makes me think that the only card that he could have played there was a Leviathan, unless he was planning on discarding another card. Thaumaturge going to come down, and he's going to discard the Eidolon, which is interesting. Eidolon is a 10k forward that whenever it leaves the field, you return it to your hand instead. It's a great card in certain matchups, like the monster matchup, or ways where they have to deal with your guy on the board. Particularly like the ice, in the ice matchup, it doesn't really do much because they can't. Once they return it to your hand, once they kill it, they could simply make you discard it. The other thing is that they can vein it. So it's actually just one of the weaker forwards in this matchup. Alright, so... Oh, we're seeing our first attack. Interesting. So he's attacking his 2k. So he clearly has either Mateus or he's just not afraid to bluff it. If I am... I think that if... Let's see, he has a 9k and 7k. Yeah, I think that if I'm Josh, I block here. Because you get, first off, you don't let him have any free damage. You probably have another Porum, so you don't mind trading. And getting that Matthias out of hand makes it to where he, that Jamie cannot attack with the Sarah into the Emperor. If you don't block here, Jamie gets to attack for free with the Sarah into the Emperor, and there's nothing that Josh can do about it. But block in there at least stops that. Alright, so we're going to see a lock, and lock is only the first 6 character on the board, so there will be no discard. But when Locke does attack, he does trigger the discard. So I really like that block from Josh. And a heads up play from Jamie to attack in the order in which he did. Because, again, if Josh doesn't block there and hopes for an EX burst, then that's an easy way for Josh or Jamie to get in a second attack. The other side of it, too, is that Josh might realize that this game could come to deck out. And so even though has 40 some odd number of EX bursts in his deck, he says that I don't want to lose any of the cards from the top of my deck and get that much closer to deck out. So we are back on Josh's turn. So again, this you're watching the finals brought to you by the Esper Den. Thank you for letting me commentate on it. I'm having a blast. I love watching these two play. They're two great players. And there we go. We have the Shintoto. And a heads up from Jamie, who went ahead and removed all this stuff anyway, knowing that it was coming. So, what happened here, though, is that Josh also hit his sweet spot in two different ways. One, he has the Shantotto, so he can play any of his cards now. There's a lot of off-color cards. So now, for example, Jamie has to be very careful attacking. If he values the Kuja, he's attacking into the 5-drop Matthias, which will be kind of a blow. And now that he has the Shantotto, he can pay for the ice. And then also hitting the 5 backup, or hitting the 3 backups allows him to cast his Camelot for rather cheap. If he draws into his 3rd Camelot, it allows him to cast his Star Sybil. There's a lot of reasons, but he happens to just draw the Chaos, and so he plays Chaos and passes the turn. And there we go. We have the first EX burst, Star Sybil. Star Sybil is going to probably go and get a Camelot, the 3rd Camelot. And this is the last Camelot. So, see if he has does he have any other targets? I believe he only has Camelot, because he already has the Shantotto in hand. And there's the Flan. So he's gonna let's see, he's searching his deck for another Flan. Yep. Ideally, what Jamie would like to do here is make Josh discard his whole hand. Whether or not he set up this turn to be able to do that is one thing. We'll see. So he went and got all the Flans. Yep. So no, he's going to be able to cast that Camelot, and then from there he needs to worry about the 2nd Zalera. Although Jamie could lock him down by stringing in Orphans. It would need to be Orphan into Vayne or Genesis into Vayne, since he will only be able to lock it down 1 turn. Oh, actually no, he actually has Kuja, so oh, there we go. He's gonna want to play that Camelot for free. I think this play is really risky if he does not play the Camelot here. I think this could be a very bad move for him if he does not play Camelot. The thing is that, oh man, I wonder if his hand is too... What other dark cards could he have? Oh, and Jamie is taking advantage of this. What other dark cards? I don't think there's any other dark cards Josh could have had to not play the Camelot there. So he had the Emperor, Shantotto, the Ilnar's in the Grave break. He already has a Chaos. He most definitely could have just played the Camelot there. Oh, and there goes the Camelot. So from this position, Josh has he still has the Cecils in his deck. He has some number of Porums. Unfortunately, as the spectator, I'm not able to click these and look through them. It would take a long time for me to scroll up in chat to count how many he has left. But he has... I know he has at least some Cecils left. K-Sith is not going to do anything there, because K-Sith EX is just that he dulls. Oh man, I would love to find out why Josh did not play the Cam. Especially if he's holding a card like Yuna, which does nothing, obviously, now, since he is backup blocked. There was... Okay, so he had 4 cards in hand, right? So if he played... Either way, his Camelot was going to die to a Sid Austin. No matter what. I mean, I wonder if Josh was afraid of was the Sid Austin. But if he has a single discard, which we knew about the Flan, we knew about 3 Flans. We knew that... So I guess he was worried about that either way. But again, if he had a single discard in hand, he was going to lose a Camelot either way. I would rather hope that my opponent doesn't have Sid Austin. The thing about Jamie, though, is that Jamie has probably tested the matchup and thought about it, and no doubt would have planned to hold back the Sid Austin for that exact moment. So there we are. We played another Porum. And Jamie is kind of taunting Josh right now, saying you only have 3 more forwards in the deck. So Jamie's definitely been keeping track. And Josh is down to... So he's dulling that to get in some damage. Josh is down to 12 cards. So even attacking here may not even guarantee that he wins through damage, but guarantees that he gets his to an odd number. And an odd number is where you want to be if you're trying to deck somebody out. Since they obviously have exactly 1 less turn. So we're killing that and probably making him discard one of the 2 cards in his hand. Yep, 7K and discard. You certainly... So you can't even Leviathan it here if you have it, because if you do, you're decking out faster because you're going to take another card when you replay it. Oh, he is going to Leviathan it. It's interesting. The reason I don't like this play is because even replaying the Porum doesn't do anything, because the Thaumaturge and the Sarah are too big, and they actually just deal with the Porum anyway. So maybe he's Leviathing it. Did he discard? Oh no, so he does have to discard because there was only one target. So maybe he's just protecting his hand. So that's the reason. So he wanted the Glacia not to resolve, to discard from his hand, but alright, so Presto lost all of his attackers, which is Jamie, which isn't really that big of a deal, and I don't think that he cares all that much. Here we go, there's the first discard. I would not be surprised if he... Okay, so he didn't have a second discard. What did he discards the Tamos, so he still has the Porum. Well, it's definitely, he will probably play the Porum here, and go back up to 4 cards, or he'll go back up to 3 cards in hand, so the Thaumaturge will stay 2,000, and at least he'll be able to hold it off at so long as Jamie doesn't have another discard. There's the Porum. So he discarded a card and played Porum, which is going to make that Thaumaturge bigger and be able to attack. I wonder if he noticed that. This is a pretty exciting match for the finals, and it is 2 of the decks I would consider playing in the top 8 if I was still playing in this. I think the Esper actually has a relatively good ice matchup. I think that the way that Jamie plays though is that Jamie understood the matchup and played accordingly. So he saved his discard. You don't see him discard the Sidosity until very recently, because he just didn't need, because now we know that he doesn't need it. The only 4 that he could have left is Josh could have some amount of Cecil's left, which isn't that big of a deal, because if Jamie chose not to attack, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. I don't think that there's any way that he deals enough damage to stop Josh from decking here. So we're discarding Matthias to play this as, oh, he has another Sidostine. Oh, there's no way that that's not lights out. So I believe that this is the best 2 out of 3. This is game 1, so they will probably moving to game 2 here in a second, I believe. I actually see absolutely 0 outs for Josh here. And I do wonder if Jamie had those Sidostines the whole game, or the whole time. I won't ask in chat even after this game, because I don't want it to affect the way that the next round is played out. But I will ask Josh his thoughts on that play and Jamie's thoughts on the play after the match is done, concluded. All right. So I will ask that is it best. I guess they'll know, they'll be able to say if it's best 2 out of 3. But yeah, at this point, Jamie's still like, I still have this vein. I don't need the vein, but I still have it. So Josh is sitting on 3 cards in his deck. He hasn't even drawn. Oh, there we go. So they are going to game 2 and saying that I will play first. Oh, man. All right. So Josh is saying that he's going to go first for game 2. I imagine that he's going to try to just start out with a turn 1 Camelot again. And this time hope that Jamie's not able to answer it. Alright, so Jamie took a mulligan, and Josh also took a mulligan. Jamie is probably looking for a kind of a turbo discard start, as it is decent against the this deck, who can get stuck with a bunch of dark cards in the hand. So even though you make them discard them, they are the cards that allow them to win the match. Things like Emperor and Camelot. So making them discard those cards while normally we might see it like a good thing because they're just stuck in Josh's hand, it's actually pretty bad for Josh. And he did take a mulligan, so we don't know how many of those dark cards are on bottom. So turn 1 Rosa, and Rosa, when it comes in, or EX burst, it goes and gets a Cecil. It also can prevent, I believe, 1,000 damage to any forward by dueling it, or 3,000 to Cecil. Yes, that's correct. And it also has EX burst. So turn 1 Rosa is probably not the start he's looking for. Going to get Cecil, though. If Jamie has some sort of like Argath, Thaumaturge, Sarah, I could see this game being very frustrating. That being said, even with that start, Jamie still can't attack because he's going to actually fall back behind on resources due to the sheer number of CP advantage that the EX bursts that Josh gets will help him do. So apparently Cecil isn't a Cecil for her shortcut ability. Interesting. So maybe what Josh is saying is that that's not programmed. She has a shortcut. You can right click her and use her ability to go get a Cecil. He's saying that it doesn't go get that Cecil. So that was a boom boom sound you heard. It's basically Josh making a play that the game thinks is illegal, which it was not. So we're gonna see our first attack, and again with cards in hand, there's no EX burst that Josh needs to be afraid of. Discards Matthias. And that Matthias is the bigger Matthias I can show you guys here. It is the 5... Oh, it's scrolling too fast. The 5 CP EX burst. They keep playing things that scroll too fast. Opponent puts 1 attacking forward into the break zone. This card is actually really great in the mirror because it deals with Camelot. Although I guess every card deals with Camelot in the mirror. But it's just a great card actually against Camelot because it doesn't target. So even if their Camelot is on ice, it deals with it. Even if, for example, if they attack with a Lua and you EX burst that, or if you just cast it, it works as well. So Jamie is going to play Celeste, locking down the Chaos, which is a vital card for Josh because he can't actually play a lot of his cards because he is a rainbow deck. I believe it's every color. Is it? Let me check real quick. Besides light and fire, no fire, no light. Man, so think about the gravity of that situation. He's saying freeze chaos. Can you see my arrow? Oh, maybe you couldn't see the arrow. Yeah, no, it didn't show up for me. Okay, so the arrow did not show up for Josh. The gravity of the thing is that this deck is going to play every powerful EX burst available to it, but it doesn't even play a single fire card. So that says a little bit about fire. So Josh just passes the turn. That Chaos probably did some work there. I mean that freezing of the Chaos with the Celeste probably did some work. And an Argath, so he's just going to be chipping away at his hand. And no attacks because he values the Celeste too highly. I think that Jamie is just 100% fine with this game going to a deck out. Currently, if Josh has to be careful about playing even like Porums, for example, or Middle Webs, which will get him closer to deck outs. So it discards Porum. Porum is that EX burst 4 CP 5000, and then, again, you look at the top 3, put 1 on bottom. It's actually great for looking for the Camelot if he doesn't have the Camelot already. And he discards a Mustadio. So Mustadio is probably not great here, as Jamie isn't looking to attack at the moment. Plays Mirror Web. Interesting enough, I wonder if he has extra cards in his hand that he does not want. Or maybe he just values the backup. As Porum would have dug a little deeper, so he discards the Leviathan and moves on. Jamie goes and plays the Summoner, which is the 1 CP 1 CP Ice backup. And again, it's just content with not attacking. He left Edward up and Celeste, so both of those specials are up. I think Jamie will just let this one go through. I doubt he really cares about canceling this, even if he has Edward or Celeste up, because we know that there's no real way for Josh to punish him. There is no fanfare or way for him just to sacrifice a single guy on the board. And so I think Josh just wanted to remain there for two reasons. One, if he does bait Jamie into canceling it to make a mistake, that's great. And two, just to use the CP most efficiently. He has a single chaos up at the end of the turn, and a 1 CP card in his hand. He might as well use it. So Josh had asked, is it still my turn? He asked that because if you play something at the end of your opponent's turn, it technically backs them up into their second main phase, in which they can still play things. So he discards a Chaos and a Mirror Web to play a Star Sybil. Star Sybil can search for Shantoto here, or a Camelot. My guess is that he will search for the Camelot. I think it's more important. And the Shantoto isn't going to do much because the Celeste isn't attacking. So the other thing is that next turn this allows him to dole the Star Sybil to put dole and break the Star Sybil to put the Camelot into play, search up Emperor, discard a single card from the hand, and play the Emperor, thus establishing like a pretty decent board against Jamie. Jamie did discard the Duke Larg, which makes me think that he has another one. I think Jamie knows that he wants his Celeste to be able to battle with the Camelot. He might just be saving the Duke Larg in his hand to kind of force Josh into a play where he doesn't think that's going to be good enough. So we're doling this. We're doling there, and we're still not attacking. So we're just establishing a board. Interesting enough, this is an interesting way that Jamie could bait out a Shantoto. So he extends another forward onto the board, and right now Josh only has one forward that he doesn't care about that much, as in the form of Rosa. Although Rosa is really good at protecting Camelot, at least preventing damage. It prevents 1,000 damage, which will be great if Jamie does have the Edward. But if he's able to Shantoto here, he has to discard 2 cards plus Shantoto, so that he'll go down to 2 cards, and then very easily Jamie could somehow either Argath or use his cards to get out of Argath, Sarah, Thaumaturge, to force Josh to discard that Camelot from hand. So it looks like Josh is not going to fall into the bait. Would have been a kind of a cool play to see, because I think that was what Jamie was angling for there. But Josh spells the bait and says nope. So here's that Camelot Emperor play I spoke of. I believe that there's no incentive not to just play it. You still have cards in your hand. You have enough cards where Jamie will have to at least commit to the board quite a bit in order to make you discard them. The other thing, though, is that Jamie gets to attack here with the Genesis and the Celeste if he wants to bait the I have the Matthias plan. But he does run into the EX burst. And also what happens then is Josh attacks back for 3, which is not a good trade for Jamie. So I don't think that we'll see him attack here. There's a lot of... so when he attacks here, he clearly has Matthias or values getting those cards out of his hand. So here's the situation. He just takes it. Case that doles the Celeste. He's going to have to discard. This gets cards out of Josh's hand, which could open him up to a Empire Sid if Jamie decides to go deep here. Sarah, so you discard, go down to 1. So he could still Empire Sid here. He would have to discard 1 card, play like a Thaumaturge or an Argath, and then discard the 3 to play the Empire Sid. If I'm Jamie, I certainly do that. Oh, that works too. The reason I say you do that is because not only do you kill the Camelot, but you actually just stop him from being able to Shantoto. He just won't have enough cards in his hand basically to ever Shantoto. So he... Hold on 1 second, guys. Sorry about that, guys. My dog's been a little crazy. My wife came home. Alright, so let me just catch up real quick. He discards Mirror Web, discards Porum, and plays a Raban. Hold on, Dole's coming on. Okay, alright, so he doles the Mirror Web, doles the Chaos, and discards the thing to kill the Vayne. Alright. I assume Cam is ice. Yes. So Josh forgot to actually say that it was ice. In a actual match with like a judge was there present, if things haven't gone, if we haven't done enough to where you can't rewind it, then they would both get a warning and Camelot would stay dark. But things didn't happen enough to where it mattered that Camelot was not ice. So they went back and made him ice. Alright, so we attack. And he hits the Natamos. No cards in hand. Getting rid of the Emperor. So here's where that Rosa is going to come in handy. It's going to be able to protect that Camelot. Josh is not attacking. So I'm trying to think if... So the reason that Josh doesn't attack there is if he blocks with a Sid Austin, he does lose a Sid Austin, he can activate Rosa, and then his Camelot will live, but then he has to take back the attack. He has to also take and return the attack from the Genesis and the Sarah. So Jamie played Mog, went and got Orphan, and now he's party attacking with Genesis and Sarah. This is actually a strong way to get through the Camelot on ice. Is he has to decide whether he wants to trade for this Genesis, and then the threat of another Genesis coming down, and the threat of losing Camelot, or he takes the damage and loses a card. So Laguna will tap the Sidoskin down, and then he will discard a card, and he discards Yuna. Yuna's obviously not very good here. Yuna is the 5 CP water card that is EX Burst, and it returns a forward to hand. It's a little bit of Devout protection, but I don't believe Jamie's running Devout. But really, you don't want to bounce anything in Ice. These guys all have enter the field effects, so you really don't want to bounce any of these guys. So he's attacking with Rosa, which means now his Camelot cannot protect the Rosa. Or the Rosa cannot protect the Camelot. And Jamie has 7 cards in hand to Josh's 3. He's up on backups, and he's also up on forwards in the field. But I think what Josh is hoping for is that the EX Burst make up for the summon, or make up for the CP difference. So he defends with Camelot here. I wonder if he's going to kill one of the... My guess is he's going to kill one of the forwards that are attacking. In which case, I think Josh will... Jamie will respond with countering with Edward. I just don't see him attacking here unless he has... Okay, he didn't have the counter. So he may attack here and then still have a way to deal with... Or replay like a Genesis, for example, here. Ooh, Mustadio is going to come in and kill that Sid Austin. So my guess is that we see another Genesis here. So go down to 0 cards. Now either another Genesis or another Sid Austin. Genesis here is probably just the best usage of CP. The Vayne's also good. Vayne will dole down that Camelot and make it not untap or undole. So Josh is down to 17 cards in the deck, and Jamie's still sitting at a healthy 24. So Jamie's in no rush to end this game, whereas Josh needs to put on the pressure quickly, and he's only dealt 2 damage, whereas Jamie's already dealt 4 damage. So we're going to dole the Vayne, and then let's see, what are we going to do about that We're going to attack into the Thaumaturge. There's no way Jamie, yeah. So Jamie just snap defends. He clicks Alt D as quickly as possible to defend. If you guys aren't familiar with Octagon, Alt A is to attack, Alt D is to defend. I've never seen anyone defend faster. There's no doubt he had those fingers on the shortcut there. I will trade with your Rosa all day, he said. Rosa is, like I said, one of the ways that he could protect the Camelot in a head-on battle. So there we go. We're going to keep pressing the advantage. Oh, he does not attack there. So yeah, he's just settled into the, you know what, I'm in no rush. Because neither of your guys can attack me, so no reason for me to risk an EX burst. If the EX burst he hit was Odin or Atomos or any of the EX bursts really hits that kills the Vayne, then Jamie's in a lot of trouble here. One of the reasons that this deck does not play Famfrit is because you always want to have a Camelot on the field. But unfortunately, it's also one of the reasons that it's so hard to deal with a card like Vayne, because you have to, like, you can Leviathan it, which is not super great. You can Atomos it currently. If you had a Duke Larg, then that makes it very hard. You can spend a lot of CP to Odin it, or you could Chaos Walker it in, with, in this case, without a Yuna, which is a little bit dangerous. So we're just playing a Cecil, which when Cecil comes into play, he destroys a dual forward equal to the number of damage you have taken or less. I think that, well, obviously Jamie has no dual forwards, but Josh is understanding that Jamie's just not attacking me, so I'm not going to get any value out of this card. I might as well play it. And by doing so, he went to 0 cards in hand, and Jamie punishes him with a Sid Austin. If I am sitting in Jamie's spot, I actually, you know, I don't want to call it, I see absolutely no way that Josh wins here from this point. He's got to do something. So let's say the biggest thing he could do here is Shantoto. But he can't Shantoto because he can't get enough cards in his hand to actually Shantoto. And that Flan's going to keep that way. So if Josh goes draw 2, pass, he'll need those 2 cards in his hand at the start of next turn to Shantoto, or at least one of them. And then the additional 2 from the following turn will allow him to Shantoto. But there's no way that Jamie allows this to happen. Additionally, so there we go, they're already discarding 1. Additionally, even if he allows it to happen, Josh still has to deal him the 5 points of damage in 6 turns without Jamie having any sort of response. Oh, so we're double discard, and we're keeping the Flans, which is great because he's already dealt with that Emperor. This is looking very bad. So he says, go ahead and discard. And so he is he casting Leviathan, it looks like? Oh, so he's going to 0 cards, so he doesn't have to discard anyway. Which I think that if I am Jamie, I'm just completely fine with this. So there we go. Now we can put the pressure on because he has absolutely no. Oh man, so he hits Leviathan. All these guys you don't want to bounce because they're just going to apply discard next turn. So I wonder if he'll actually use it. The thing is that if you're going to bounce something, you maybe, okay, he bounces the Dane. I was going to say maybe you bounce the Genesis because he gets to attack with the Genesis right now, and you're forced to block. Or go to 6, I guess. So he blocks here. I actually maybe like taking the damage first, because now he gets the, well, it just doesn't matter. Anyway, what I was trying to say is that now he gets to attack for free and not worry about, he's going to draw a card. He doesn't have to worry about his Vayne dying. So he goes ahead and attacks. Josh can't hit any X burst that kill Vayne because Vayne's now in the hand. So he draws Kuja. So the reason he showed that he drew Kuja there, he doesn't have to show, but he's saying that the Zidane would have been cheaper if he drew the Kuja first. Played the Kuja, and the Zidane would have been had a reduced cost down to 2. So he says, drew Kuja from Zidane. Josh is nice, and then Jamie says, oh, the irony. So I'm trying to. So if this match has been really exciting, I think that Jamie's just piloting it so well. He's just not attacking. He's understanding that, hey, I just cannot attack into this EX burst. He has so many EX bursts. Again, 43 EX bursts. He has Kate Sith and Lagunas to dull, Porums and Roses to basically draw cards, Cecil's, Odin's, Atamos, Matthias, Chaos, Rama to kill things, Leviathan and Yuna to bounce things, Mustadio and Raban again to kill things, Star Symbol for more search, and Mirrorweb for more draw. So basically, if you're trying to rush down this EX burst deck, you're going to have a bad time. If you try to go to late game, it has big guys. Ice is able to do both just fine. It doesn't have to attack. It's comfortable building up a board and making you discard your cards. And that's exactly what we're seeing here. We're seeing Flan activate to make him discard. He discards as a Raban. I would be surprised if we don't see a Vayne at some point come back down, discard another card. So he just doesn't have to. That's the thing. Jamie just doesn't have to expose it. So yeah, so Josh is saying, yeah, I know, yeah, no, I figured you would play super conservatively and this would end up being bad games, LOL. And then Jamie says, yeah, I kind of have to play like this. You know, it's interesting that Josh says that. I actually think that this is a good way to play the match, and he's just playing it correctly. So now he's having a little fun. He says, cross his fingers as he attacks. I think Josh knows that, or Jamie knows that it's fine to attack here and to hit any EX burst. It's not really that relevant. And then Josh says, wow, duh, when else would that EX Odin show up for the first time in this match? So he's thinking pretty hard here. I think that good game, man. You got it. Yeah, I think that there's just nothing he could do. Like I said, he can't play the shit Toto. He even has the extra dark card in hand. That's the finals for you guys. Josh Gardner's Crazy EX deck, which was based off Nicholas B's deck from the SoCal, loses to Jamie Faulkner's Mono Ice deck, which is kind of a variant of what we've been seeing, particularly from like the Toby era of Ice. Nice game. That's game plan. It was great to watch. Anyway, thank you to the Esper Den for allowing me to stream this. I've had a great amount of time. I've had a good time doing this. It was a really fun and interesting deck. Guys, go check out the Esper Den channel. They're super awesome. I'm Samsonite Prime. I'm part of the Chocobros podcast. I'm good friends with Lucas Watson, who does a great job at the Esper Den. And shout out to them adding DeMarcus because I just can't wait to see the content that they put out with DeMarcus on the team. Again, Josh goes home with some amount of pricing here. Jamie goes home with the big amount of pricing. I don't remember what it was. Some number of box of product from the stores that sponsored it. Get with the Esper Den. They will show you guys the pricing. If you guys don't know about this, please join the Octagon group. So it's FFTCG Octagon, which is OCTGEN, or OCTGN. And then also please make sure you join the Eidolon Festival group so you can be kind of updated with when these are happening. It's $5 entry, which is a new thing, and then the prize payout is amazing. And you get to play against people from all over the world. I've played against people from Singapore, Japan. I've played against people from England, Spain, Germany. It's just so much fun. Again, this is Final Fantasy TCG brought to you by the Esper Den, and this was the finals of the Eidolon Festival. So thanks for joining us, guys, and we'll catch you guys later. Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special interview. We are joined by the winner of the Eidolon Open, Jamie Faulkner. Jamie, how you doing today?
Thanks for having me for the interview and recording the game.
Yeah, so you won the game. It was a best 2 out of 3, and you took it in 2. Before we get into that, I just want to talk about how the Eidolon Open went for you. Starting with round 1, like how did the overall event? What was your final record?
I lost in the Swiss because reading my opponent's cards, and he had the that 2, like he played 5-drop deleter turn 1.
Okay.
The guy was either not a good player, had opened badly, or was playing a bad deck.
Okay.
Which I think His deck was the EX burst deck basically. It was just a different version of it with knights,
Okay.
and he had the 2-drop backup that lets him untap a knight.
Right.
I did this big play where I doled like 2 things, and then discarded my hand to Zalira.
Right.
Tapped his deleter, and then I just basically had no way of winning from there.
Oh. Okay.
But other than that, I won every other game.
Okay.
And I think swept the top 8, so I don't think I lost a game.
Okay, so
I think I won everything 2-0. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And did you play Mono Ice throughout the entire Swiss as well?
Played. I can't remember what I played the first couple of rounds. I played it mostly.
Okay.
Played Mono Water Monsters though. I was
Okay.
thinking of playing that in the top 8. But
So what made you choose Mono Ice? Now I know that with the fourth open, you actually went with Mono Lightning, right?
the only reason I did that was because I'd never actually played the element Lightning
Okay.
in a tournament.
All right.
Ever.
Well, that worked out well for you though.
I don't think my deck was very good.
Right. Okay. So then you played Mono Ice in this event. Why play Mono Ice in Opus 5? Is it the best deck right now? Is it clearly the best deck?
People debate whether it's Wind-Earth or Mono Ice.
Okay.
I think when I play Mono Ice, it's the best deck. Because I play it really well.
Okay, so it also depends on your playstyle.
I think Mono Ice... It's something that Toby taught me actually with Mono Ice. He said, anyone can do well with Mono Ice because it's kind of broken.
Mm-hmm.
But when a good player that knows the deck really well plays it, you can just do really special things.
Right.
I think I've been playing Mono Ice a lot now since Opus 4, and I actually have a crazy win rate with it now. I've played 7 tournaments with it, and I've won 6 of them.
Nice. Well, yeah.
The one I didn't win was Milan, where I came 3rd, so it's been pretty good.
Yeah,
so I just think I played the deck well.
When I was commentating over your match, it was interesting. It was almost as if I knew everything you were going to do because I was like, well, I think Jamie is going to not fall into this trap. He's not going to block here. He's attacking here. It seemed like you played the deck absolutely perfectly, in my opinion. And you knew exactly what... The good thing is you had access to his deck list. At one point, even joking, you only have 5 forwards left in your deck, or 3 forwards, or something like that. You knew exactly what you're getting into, and you piloted it perfectly around those things. What was your strategy going into this finals match?
I was jokingly talking to Joshua Freeman Birch, and I just said I'm not going to ever attack because his deck is actually terrible without EX bursts. Like,
Right.
it's just a bunch of really bad cards that don't have any synergy. So
Correct.
the power of his deck is that he wants to just play forwards turn 1 and attack you and hope you fall into the trap of trying to trade back because he's playing inefficiently, and most opponents will see that and think, okay, I'll play efficiently playing forwards and we'll just trade damage and I'll win that way.
Right.
But that's exactly what he wants. So I just kind of jokingly said to Josh, attack and see how that goes.
Right.
And it went well. It seemed pretty obvious after game 1 that he actually had no way of dealing with and chilling out because he was always going to deck out first.
Right.
Run out of relevant forwards first as well, because realistically he only had 3 forwards that could be, and they were all 5 drops or more, so Vayne just sat them all down, and the only other forward he had that was bigger than 7k was the Emperor, and that was a one-off. Yeah. So all I had to do was play Duke Larg and a Vayne, and the game was over.
Right, and if you're never attacking, then his Cecils, are fairly useless unless he happens to chain them into Laguna or Kate Sith.
Same. He needs to play one of the door effects to get the Mustadio.
Right.
And the Cecil isn't going to work anyway, right? Because he needs to have taken damage.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And so I actually jokingly thought, or I think I even said it while recording. I was like, let me just look over Jamie's list, because if he has an Arcanist in this deck, the game is actually just over. Because you don't need to attack. All you need to do is stop him from attacking you, and the game ends. What you were able to do...
You don't need the Arcanist to stop him because none of his forwards are bigger than mine.
Right.
And he has no combat tricks. He has not one combat trick in the deck. Right.
I actually thought it was interesting. There was a time where you would actually discard Duke Larg, and I was thinking, well, that's actually just how he's going to, if you had played the Duke Larg, then none of his guys could get over your Vayne, for example. He can't even attack. He can't trade his Camlin, or not your Vayne, but he can't trade any of his guys into your 9Ks, because then he's just going to lose the game. He only has so many forwards. but then you played a way where it actually didn't even matter.
If you're talking about game 2,
yeah,
I never drew Vayne, and the first damage he did to me was a Duke Larg.
Yeah,
which was really sad actually because I really wanted it, and I had mulliganed a Duke Larg hand to the bottom, so I knew I wasn't going to see another Duke Larg that game. But game 1 I discarded a Duke Larg because I had another one in hand.
Okay, yeah, and that's what I thought. I thought maybe you had another one.
It's a pretty important card because, like I said, all I need is a Vayne with a Duke Larg, and he actually never can get past me.
Right, yeah, and it also just stops his Atomos. Like, so now he's either Chaos Walkering you or he's Odining you because he can't Atomos your Vayne because you're never going to attack with it. Which is one of the greatest things is you were able to play the match towards, like, at one point he Leviathaned your Vayne and you were like, okay, that's great. Now I get to attack without worrying about Expers.
Because it was my last Vayne. He hit one into the break zone and I'd already lost one for some reason. So I was like, I played the Vayne and I had like a really good board and I could have killed him over 2 turns even with the X burst.
Right.
But I couldn't afford to lose my Vayne, so I was just reserved for the fact I was never attacking him again.
Yep.
But it was great when he did that. I was pretty happy with that.
And so generally, you never want to Leviathan into something against ice. They just have too many enter the field effects. And so when he finally targets your Vayne, it's like the only good target. But then it's actually just a really bad target because it lets you attack. So I
think he had to target the Vayne. I can't remember what the specific reason was, but I think I forced him to do it to the Vayne.
Yeah, I don't remember either. There was a turn where he searched up a Camelot, and you had just played Flans, but you weren't able to make him discard the Camelot at the time. And then the next turn he plays some things and does not cast the Camelot. What did you think? Because I thought the whole time I'm thinking this was in game 1. I'm thinking like if he just casts the Camelot, he clearly loses if Jamie has the Sid Austin. But anything else, and he might actually have a chance in this game. But he didn't cast it, and you ended up going flan, like, or no, you didn't even have to do it. You had like Sarah discard.
Oh yeah, I did flan times 3 and a Sarah. It was hilarious.
Right, and so he discarded it. He didn't discard his Camelot, and as you know, like that was the only card that you have to fear out of that matchup.
Fair. I played 3 Vayne, and at that point I had 2 Vayne in hand. I had 2 Vayne, a Sarah, and a Sid Austin in hand.
Oh, so you had the Sid Austin anyway. Okay, so he was a Gardner no matter what.
Yeah, but that's what happens when I don't have to discard cards aggressively. I can just keep all the broken cards.
Right, because
like, I've got a write-up from Spanish. Right? And I don't have to put pressure on him, and that's a rare situation for me.
Right.
It's like people see Mono Ice and they think, oh, you have to play really aggressively, and you have to, win the game fast and make them discard pressure and all that. But Mono Ice can literally win in any way. It has the most win conditions out of any deck I've ever played. Right. And milling them is actually a legit strategy that you can do with Mono Ice.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it is a thing.
Yeah. Not to mention, it just got one of the best. It got one of the best win conditions in the game as Orphan. You didn't even need Orphan in this matchup.
Orphan lets you follow the win condition of doing 7 points of damage.
Yeah.
And that's actually the last win condition you go for with Mono Ice. The first win condition you always go for is discard.
Right.
You want the game to go to 0 cards for both players, and you are happy with that. And then you go for value. After the discard, you then go to value, and you outvalue your opponent. And then only then you make the decision whether you want to go to mill or to damage.
Right.
It's very, very rarely do I start a game and think I need to just do damage.
Yeah.
I only really do that versus mono water monsters.
And that's what I was going to ask is that the plan against mono water monsters because you don't want to go to the late game?
No, it's because my discard cards actually get destroyed by mono water monsters. I played what is it called? Thaumaturge. I play Thaumaturge and it just dies to a Tomberries.
Right. Yeah. Right.
With mono water monsters, the issue they have is they don't have any powerful forwards. Yeah. So if you just play a lock turn 1 and then next turn you play either Genesis or a Duke Larg, they actually are just taking a point of damage or losing a forward and discarding a card every single turn, basically. And it's just pressure they can't deal with. So you're still doing the discard pressure, but it's like it's a little bit of damage pressure and a little bit of discard pressure, and that's just the perfect amount to beat that deck.
Right. Yeah,
at the time you want to load up on discards.
Right. Generally, when you're playing mono water, there are a lot of decks that want to go to 5 backups. Mono waters are the one that wants to go to it the most. So yeah, if you're putting on pressure and they're just not able to play their backups, then their late game cards like Cognazzo just do nothing.
You say that because the list that the Spaniards were playing really did not care about going to 5 at all. It was actually a really aggressive deck, which is, and I don't know if you saw the Spanish nationals, but the guy played like 2 forwards turn 1 versus me and took me to 4 damage turn 3.
Yeah.
And
I know. I actually didn't catch that match. I didn't catch that match.
Really impressive how the Spanish players played Mono Water Monsters. They turned it into this really efficient value aggressive deck. I don't know if you played Magic, but it was a bit like playing like a blue-white aggro control deck.
Okay, yeah. No, I played a lot of Magic, so yeah. Yeah, and
really liked that.
It's interesting you say that too, because in Magic, you can play that if you're the blue-white decks. I'm trying to think. They used to have that the 2/2 that attacked and put a 4/4 Flying Angel into play.
Yeah, that card's broken.
Right. So they basically like that. You could play control deck, right? Or in the more aggressive, where you need to be the aggressor, you could just play that and start attacking. So it's interesting. You
played it exactly like a Delver deck. So they just played efficient forwards, and then they just disrupted you.
Interesting.
It was really cool the way they played it, and honestly, I think it's the best way to play that deck now because I very rarely lose when I play Mono Ice, and I actually lost twice to it to Mono Water Monsters in the Swiss or Spanish nationals.
Interesting.
I almost didn't make top 16.
Is that so? Was that one of the reasons that you considered playing the deck in this event? Because I know you had said you considered playing it.
Water Monsters, yeah, because I met the team Xander Canabes in the Spanish nationals, and they were all so nice. They were such lovely people, and they were really fun to play against. And they showed me that Mono Water Monsters could be more than just get to 5, play a board, play Cognazzo, and win. That's so boring. It's never a playstyle I want to do. I hate decks that only have 1 win condition.
Yeah, that's fair.
They showed me it could be played a different way, and I really liked that, but I still just found it really boring.
That's fair. That's fair, yeah. And now I'm interested in looking into that, because I love Mono Water Monsters, so I kind of want to look into that playstyle, which is interesting because in the latest podcast, Toby and Josh actually kind of talked about the different playstyles, because they had played with, to Japanese players, they play very different than Western players, which is very different than their aggro style. So it's interesting to see that even the Spaniards have a different play style that we have yet to discover. And some decks...
Well, I'd say in Europe, the Spanish players are the most foreign of all of the sort of top European countries because the Spanish players don't tend to travel very much. Okay. So it was the first time I'd met basically any of them. And I travel all around Europe to play the game.
Okay.
So their play style would understandably be very different to ours because they just kind of have their own enclosed thing.
Right. Which is interesting.
That was really interesting to go and play because it was like playing a different game when I went to that tournament.
Right. So you actually the cool thing about that is that you actually learn that play style, and there's no doubt at some point that's going to be either beneficial for you to use that play style in certain matchups, or for you to at least know what's coming at you if you play against something like that.
Yeah, it's nice to get your mind open because it's really easy to look at Mono Water Monsters, especially that's a deck that people have sort of figured out now, right? It's a slow deck that you just play stuff and eventually you win with Cognazzo. So it's really interesting that you can see that these players that if you look at their deck list just on paper, you think, I don't know why have they got 3 Adamantoys and no Rauban? It's kind of weird. Yeah. But then you understand why when they actually play it.
Yeah. So about your specific list, so there's a couple ice variants going out right now. There's obviously the turbo discard, which is to some people the absolutely most frightening version. Because if they're living the dream, you don't actually get to play Final Fantasy. But of course, that's only when they're living the dream, right?
No, that deck is the best deck in the format by far. The Gesper deck is absolutely ridiculous. It can't lose to anything except it loses to Mono Ice.
So is that specifically because of Flan?
No, Flan is just a dead draw in that matchup.
Okay, see, I figured it would be good because if they have like something like Justelian, or if they have the Empire, if they Sid Austin, for example, you can actually force your hand back up so that they can't make you, like with that trigger on the stack, then you won't be able to discard. Yeah. Although I guess they still have Jesper, so even if you do that, they could Jesper that card out of the hand.
Yeah, it's mainly just because like all the aggressive discard cards they play, you also play, but you also just go bigger than them.
Right.
It's the same analogy you always do in Magic. If you do the mirror, it's the person with the sideboard that has the most, that goes bigger, right? It's the person that plays the aggro deck with the control sideboard. They're going to win the mirror.
Right, exactly. And that's why like the aggro decks lose to the mid-range decks, the mid-range decks lose to the control decks.
My deck is the mid-range version of Mono Ice, so of course it's going to lose to the Gesper version.
Okay.
But actually, the Gesper version is ridiculous. It can't lose to anything except for Mono Ice, basically.
That's really interesting. So then, what beats this version? Like, what is your biggest fear? Like,
know when I leave the tournament playing it. It hasn't happened yet.
Okay. So theoretically, though, it would be something along the lines of a bigger version of this deck. But is that even possible? Because like Orphan's as big as it gets, right?
You think, because you said it yourself, it's not necessarily bigger. It's mid-range to control, and there is a control list, and that's the Japanese list, right? That's with all the summons,
okay, yeah,
and the removal and stuff like that. But actually, that deck gets destroyed by the mid-range deck because all I'm going to do is make them have 0 in hand, so they can never do their combos versus me. And then if I've lost control of the game, I don't need to attack. I can chill out. I can take them low. They don't really play. I don't think they play Alstein. They definitely don't play Flan. So I'm always going to be the one that can swing the game, because if you go Flan, Alstein,
yep,
playing against, they're going to lose.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird because even though I'm not as a controlling deck, I can go bigger than them just by changing my playstyle.
Okay.
So I don't really understand why the Japanese are playing, because I feel like it's worse versus pretty much everything. It can't really beat Wind Earth.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really do better in the mirror, I don't think, as long as the person playing the mid-range deck is a good player.
Right, that's interesting. Yeah, so you're playing, although Kuja is a little bit of the Japanese style, right? Like they love their Kuja over there. Why was your inclusion of Kuja in this list?
So I just had one slot, because everyone, I think I'm probably the only person playing Mono Ice consistently and doing well with it consistently that doesn't play Setzer.
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah.
So originally I had one Setzer. I think Toby's original list had 2, but I was playing one just for the mid-range games, kind of.
As a way to cycle the Justalian Empire, said too, right?
Yeah, kind of. But playing one Setzer means you have to play 2 Empire Sids. I only have to play 1 because I don't play Lock for the on-entry discard effect. I play it as a pressure card.
Of course, right.
Right.
So I think that's also an understatement. Like people don't generally understand that. Like a lot of times the deck should just play Lock turn 1, right?
Yeah, a lot. If you're playing in a best of 3 situation, like for instance in Spanish Nationals, I played Lock turn 1 pretty much every single game. Especially in a best of 3, where sometimes you just lose to an EX burst if you play a forward turn 1, especially a 3-drop. If you've got a spare game that you can lose to random luck, then you absolutely should just put your opponent on that horrible pressure, because it really is not nice to play against Lock turn 1. And then you can really mind game people. Like I played against Candido, who's the guy, he made top 8 of Euros last year playing he played no backups,
right?
Which was really funny. But he didn't make Worlds because he lost to Joshua Freeman Birch in the mirror. Him in the top 4. He was playing Wind Earth, and I think I went turn 1 Celeste Lock versus him, game 1.
Yeah.
And I got absolutely destroyed. It was horrible. He just, he hit a Star Sybil turn 1. Then I made a stupid play. I played an Orphan with only 4 characters or something.
Okay.
And it was just a horrible mistake, and the game went badly. So then I tell him he can go first, because versus the control decks, you always want them to go first, so they have less cards in hand.
Okay.
At the start, even though they eventually get more. And you have 7, they have 3, and that's good for you. I then played 2 backups. He played 1 backup, kept a terrible hand that was really defensive with a Shantoto in it. He played 1 backup. I played 2. He then didn't have a play turn 2 because he kept a bad hand. And then I played 2 more backups. I had 4, and I beat him in the value game. And it was just because I can mind game that way.
Right.
Because he has no aggressive play. His deck only can win one way, basically. I guess it has mill or sort of control Dadaluma, but the whole point is he needs to go to the late game.
Yep.
I can go to the late game. I can go to the early game. I can go to the mid game. And in a best of 3, playing this deck, I think I think Mono Ice is the best because of that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think that turn 1 Lock is the scariest start that I fear when someone plays against me. Particularly because if you try to respond by not losing cards by hand by playing a forward, their response can simply be play Genesis.
Yeah, or they can just chill out, right? Because the only reason they're playing Lock turn 1 is because they don't have discard cards.
Right.
Lock is trying to make you discard. So if you overreact and play a bunch of things, then I'm just going to start playing backups and outvalue you.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, once I get my Duke Blarg out, all my forwards are better than yours.
Yeah.
But and if you play a forward, then I'll Genesis or Mateus you or something, and you've lost anyway because that's all I wanted you to do was lose cards.
Right. And that's the scariest part too. That's why I think that the ice deck should be playing Mateus, because it just allows you to it lets you dictate the pace of the game. You get to attack in the order in which, like, there was a turn where you attacked with your Thaumaturge first, and he had to block with his Porum, because even though he senses that you have the Mateus, if he doesn't block and he just takes the free damage, then you get to attack it with all your other forwards, and he has to decide the same thing over and over. I either let him in or I finally call the bluff, and he should have called the bluff in the first place, which Josh was a good player and he did. But I was thinking, like, Mateus just forces that.
Funny when you play in Swiss and people don't know your deck list.
Yeah.
Like in Spanish National, I did this a lot. I had like 4 crappy forwards, and one of them would be a Sarah or something, and I would draw another Sarah. My opponent would have 1 card in hand. I'd think, oh great, I'll attack with this Sarah. He'll block, and then I'll just play, and then I can get attacked with everything else because he won't block anymore.
Right.
And then I'll play Sarah. It'll be a good turn, and I attack with Sarah, and he just doesn't block. So I just attack with everything, bluffing the Mateus.
Yeah.
And it's hilarious because once they've made that decision for the first go, to it basically, it's kind of a sense of pride thing. Even though it's incorrect, you should do it.
I agree. Yeah.
It's funny. Mateus was a great addition to the deck. I wasn't actually playing it at first, but then I liked it. I almost never play the card, but I just liked it. It's in my deck, and I changed it. I took out Kazuza, which is a really good card, but not necessary, because I have enough discard effects, and I took out Doom Train, which is also a really good card, but it don't need it at 3 because either the effect is absolutely nutty, or it's terrible. So when you know you're going to need a Doom Train in the next couple of turns, then you'll hold on to a Doom Train.
Right.
Most of the time, you don't need a Doom Train.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about that that kind of that mind game with Mateus, because I don't think that enough people respect that decision. So I actually did the similar play in Mono Water, and I know you can do it in Lightning very well too, is where I would attack with the Realm, and they could choose to block or not block. If they block, I'm going to play the Tonberries from my hand and then kill their guy. And if they don't block, then they can't block for the rest of the game. What was that? You cut out.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so yeah, you attack if you have a Realm in hand, they block, you just play another Realm. That's cool too. You're happy with that. And I think it was in Opus 2 when I was really inexperienced. I had barely played the game, but I was winning events. I think it was entirely because I used to just bluff a lot.
Yeah.
And because I didn't really know what cards were in the game. So I was just like, okay, I'm not going to play around anything. I'm just going to attack. Yeah. And it worked. But then I think people started getting better and started calling bluffs. And you know a player is good when they call your bluff instantly. Right. They don't care. They'd rather you get rid of the card that's going to kill them. For me, I personally never... I always call bluffs. So because
it's interesting you say. So we have that same exact mentality here locally, here in Tampa. Is I always tell people, I will always call your bluff, and you should always call mine 100% of the time. Because first off, it's never even that bad of a thing. So if you attack and they block, and you get rid of the Mateus, well, at least you don't have to play around the Mateus. The difference is you can't just keep taking that damage because you can only go to 7. And so I still have people sometimes. Sometimes I still have people here in Tampa who will be attacking. I'll just be like, block, and they're just like, really? And I'm like, yes. They're like, oh, I thought I could bluff you. I'm like, you could never in this game. I feel like you can never bluff your average opponent, who's your average decent opponent who's good at the game. I think if you're gonna bluff, you have to know that your opponent is very good at the game, and the situation in which they block is very bad for them if you have the trick.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a really great example of that in the last Octagon Open where Toby attacked with a Zidane, and it basically meant that it was only 1 point of damage. Josh was winning on damage, and it just didn't feel like it was important to block in terms of the damage tempo race, but it meant that if he did block and Toby either had a Kukulkan or a Zidane, it was really bad for Josh. And it was just such a good play by Toby because he realized that he was never blocking with the Zidane next turn, and Josh would never block it.
Yeah.
Because it was too punishing for him to block it. Basically, you get good players that realize that they're not going to bluff because people are probably going to call their bluff out, and then you get the really, really good players that know when they can bluff because there are times where it's just too punishing. Right. And sometimes I outthink myself, and I realize that my opponent can't block an attack I do, because if I have going to lose on the spot, literally lose on the spot, but they don't think about the fact they're going to lose on the spot, and then they just block anyway.
Yeah.
So sometimes it just doesn't work out, but
right, yeah,
that's the case. You're probably winning anyway.
Yeah. So I guess that'll be it. Thank you for joining me. There's actually, not only was that like an interesting interview, but it was a great primer on Mono Ice for those people listening that haven't got to play Mono Ice. I think you have a strong mastery of not just this game, but particularly Mono Ice. Is there anything else you want to say before we cut this?
The write-up for Mono Ice, after you mentioned that, I did do a big write-up for a Spanish blog or something about Mono Ice.
And where can they find that?
No idea, but I will post it.
Okay, I'll tell you what. Send it to me, and I will include it in the description of this video so they can find that write-up.
But basically, I just want to say one last thing about the Ice deck is that game enders are Vayne, Orphan, and Sid Alstein.
Okay.
Pressure cards, which are like Genesis and Lock, and then you've got discard cards. But the cards that always win you the game are Vayne, Sid Alstein, and Orphan. So play 3, play 3 of those cards.
Okay.
Hold them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I really like the list that are playing 3 Vayne right now too.
No one's doing it. It's crazy.
I think I think Mr. Cool was doing it right in the
UK Nationals, but he's the only one I know other than Ryan at the start of Opus 5.
Yeah. Now Vayne is absolutely like disgusting and does so much for the deck.
It just wins you the game. If you resolve Vayne and it lives for 2 turns, your chances of winning the game have gone up 20%.
Yeah.
Tell me a card that gives you a 20% extra win percentage when you play it, and you don't have to do anything else. But yeah.
So anyway. I have one more thing too. I think listeners will actually be upset if I don't ask you this. What from Opus 6 would you consider for Mono Ice right now? Are there any cards? I know the deck list is pretty packed. You could only find room for 1 Kuja, for example. Is there anything from Opus 6 that just stands out to you?
Is a ridiculous card. It's just insane.
Which card is it?
The new legend. The
Renoa?
It's Time Mage on a body. So you play Renoa and it bounces it forward and brings it back.
So you can blink things like blink things as small as Argath or Thaumaturge if you really need to get rid of a card. But you can blink things like Genesis.
There's not a single card in the deck other than Kuja that doesn't have an enter the battlefield.
Yeah, Sid Alstein, Orphan,
Genesis, Sid Alstein, Orphan. I mean, you can probably put a 1 of that new 9-drop Dark card that makes your opponent discard a card and you break a forward.
Yes.
Imagine that. You could go like tap 3, discard 3. Is it?
Yeah.
Play whatever it's called, then break Devout, bring Renoa, kill 2 forwards. Your opponent discards 2 cards.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: do you think that it's going to be a return of the Devout metagame because of that card? I mean, clearly it takes Devout to the next level, does it not?
Well, you have to remember that the game, when an Opus is released, there's always a meta that develops in a certain way. So at the start of a meta, everyone plays much slower decks, right? Because people don't necessarily know exactly what cards to put in to be the most efficient. So
which is ironic because Magic's the opposite, right? In Magic, the metagame is always very aggressive at first.
Weird, that isn't it?
Because the control decks don't know what to play to destroy the aggro decks.
This game, it's all about mid-range, I guess, and tempo. Yeah. So people are playing those mid-range decks at the start of the format. That's where Devout really shines. But then towards the end of the set, that's why Mono Ice is always going to be really strong at the end of a set, because it just has the tools to deal with a lot of things.
Which we've been noticing too, the last few
aggressive.
Episodes. Yeah.
The more, as soon as a meta gets developed, then Ice is the best element in the game for having the tools to deal with a meta, because it has so many really good cards. Like it's just general card quality is just higher than every other element.
Right. So
have really broken cards.
So 8 days from now, Opus 6 will be legal. Is Devout in your deck? Let's say you have a tournament that day. Is Devout in your Opus 6 deck 8 days from now? Do you think?
I have no idea because I haven't really looked at the cards.
That's fair.
I'll be honest.
That's a fair answer.
So I'm qualified for Worlds. I'm just gonna take a break from the game for a little bit. Like I'm gonna play, but not play hard. Okay. I'll be interested to see what other people bring to the game. They're gonna make a meta. And I'll just enjoy kind of not having to play for anything. It's really nice.
Yeah, you know, I was going to ask you what's next for you, but you're qualified for Worlds now. So,
yeah.
If you're qualified for Worlds, do you get to play in Euros, or do you not get to play in Euros?
Yeah, I wasn't going to play in Euros,
Okay.
but that the top 8 of Euros gets a really, really good prize, a prize worth knocking your friends out of Worlds for, is exactly what their words were. So I will play.
Oh, interesting. But we don't know what that prize is yet?
I imagine it will be a holiday, something like that. And not that anyone has told me anything.
Okay.
That's just from the kind of thing I'd imagine it would be.
Something worth knocking your friends out. Yeah. That's interesting.
It's going to be like a box of cards. Who cares about that?
Right. Interesting. All right, well, that'll about do it. Thank you, Jamie, for joining us. I super appreciate you, man. It was a great interview and a great primer on ice. Any shout-outs real quick?
Shout out to Dark Sphere. Shout out to... just won a tournament, and I shouted out so many people. It took like 10 minutes.
All right. No,
shout out to my friends that know.
All right. And anyone that Jamie forgot, shout out to you guys. All right. Thanks a lot, Jamie.